So it is written, the first man Adam became a living being. The last Adam became a life-giving spirit. Notice, Jesus is called the last Adam. Compared to the first man Adam, we know who the first man Adam is. Jesus is called, it's very interestingly, last man Adam. Last man Adam. Now, why is he called the last man Adam? Let's read verse 47 also. The other name is there. Then I'll explain the two. Verse 47, the first man was of the earth. We know who the first man was. Adam, of course. He was of the earth, made of dust. The second man is the Lord from heaven. So now Jesus is clearly called the second man here. So he's called the last Adam and second man. Why is he called the last Adam? Last Adam is a name given to him because of something that he did on the cross of Calvary. He's not the last Adam in the sense of being another Adam. There have been many Adams born. See, every person born in the world is another Adam, is an Adam's son. There have been millions and millions of descendants of Adam, since Adam, and there will be even more. But Jesus was last in the sense that Adam carried with him, Adam inherited all the evil consequences of his sin and passed it on to his succeeding generations. He passed on sin and its consequences. Sin, the punishment and the consequences, to say it rightly. When Adam sinned, what happened to him happened to the entire humanity. He was a representative man. It happened to not just one man. It happened to the whole humanity was plunged into sin. Not just him. Entire human race was now affected by sin because sin, he has subjected himself to Satan. He has received Satan's nature. That nature came into him, and now that nature is passed on to his descendants. So that David says after he sinned, in sin did my mother conceive me. I was born in iniquity, he says. What a truth. He says, the problem with me is sin comes attached. When I was born with sin. I couldn't get rid of it. So I couldn't be without sin. It's impossible to be without sin. I have no choice. I'm born with sin. I was made in my mother's womb with the sin factor built into me, my nature, my personality. So I was born in sin, he says. What a tremendous truth. So everyone since Adam carried on that sin nature and was a slave to sin and Satan, was subject to the powers of sin. That is the way they lived. And not only were they slave to sin, but they also had the evil consequences of sin manifest itself in their life. All the evil consequences, I mentioned some of them, all of them was manifested in man's life. Every evil that you see in this world came as a consequence of Adam's sin. So Adam first got it, he sinned and he received the punishment and the consequences. Then it came upon his descendants and his descendants and his descendants, like that. From generation to generation it has come down. And all the way through the many generations, and now Jesus is hanging on the cross. Nobody could cut that connection, that link. Every man is born in sin because every man is born to Adam. It comes from that Adam's race. So that sin connection could not be cut off. Man could not get rid of sin and be any different. If a human being is born in this world, he's born in sin. That's the way he was born. There was no possibility of being cut off. On the cross, God made this thing work and gave a possibility. On the cross, what God did was this. He took the iniquity, the sin, the punishment and the consequences, all of it, and put it on Jesus. And Jesus became the last Adam in that sense. Only in that sense he could be called the last Adam. He's the last Adam in that sense. For those who believe in Jesus Christ, they can now break their link, this impossible link that they could never get rid of, that they were born with, sin. They could break that link and begin a new life. Jesus has become the last Adam on the cross of Calvary. God put all of our iniquities on him, and he became the last Adam, in the sense that the evil inheritance that Adam gave us an inheritance. What inheritance? The sin and its evil consequences. This is the asset that he has left us. Every generation has suffered from this. Sin and evil consequences, sin and evil consequences, and more of it. And it's been multiplying ever since, and nobody could cut that connection off. On the cross of Calvary, God laid all of our sin and the evil consequences upon Jesus, thereby permanently cut off that connection. He became the last Adam. Why is he called the second man? In verse 47, he's the second man because when he died there and when he was buried, all the sin and the evil consequences of man's sin went with Jesus, and it was buried, it was finished with. When Jesus rose again, he rose again as the second man in the sense. The first man was the first person in the human race, and whatever happened to him happened to the entire human race. The second man, therefore, is just like the first man, that whatever happens to him happens to all those who trust in him and put their faith in him. And if you are in Christ, then you belong to that seed and that line. Now you belong to a new line. This wonderful line that begins with Jesus.